This is the United Kingdom's Youngster Happiness Index, and it exposes a troubling trend. Contentment and confidence among 16 to 25-year-olds have reached a 13-year low. In addition, 48% of young people are concerned about the influence of jobs and finances on their mental health, according to the research. Regrettably, the current status of the British economy is making issues worse. Brexit, COVID, and higher energy costs as a result of protracted wars in Ukraine have weakened the economy, while inflation is at an all-time high and productivity has halted. According to the IMF, almost 90% of individuals are experiencing the effects of rising living costs, with more than half reducing non-essential spending and residential energy consumption. To make matters worse, inequalities in British society are also adding to young people's issues. This is a time when youngsters are expected to start their professions and care for elderly parents. Yet, rising housing expenses, unequal taxation, and an imbalanced welfare state make this a difficult time for Gen Z and Millennials. A population pyramid divides a country into age cohorts, with the size of each group indicated by the length of the rectangle. The first generation, known as the Silent Generation, went through key historical events such as World War II, the Great Depression, the emergence of businesses, and the space age. After that, baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964, are the country's largest demographic group and have had a dominating influence in influencing national affairs. Generation X was born between 1965 and 1980, amid the start of the internet, mobile phones, ATMs, and credit card debt. The Millennial Generation, those born between 1981 and 1996, are noted for their digital-first mindset and expertise in social media and gaming. Unfortunately, they lack financial expertise and have lesser salaries around the age of 30, making it harder for them to escape the rental trap in a booming housing market. Lastly, Generation Z was born between 1997 and 2012 and has never known a world without the internet and social media. They are truly digital natives who represent the future of communication and technology. The younger generation, on the other hand, is more exposed to the present cost of living issue than their elders. According to Barclays credit and debit card statistics, both Generation Z and Millennials have substantially decreased their spending on recreational products, while older generations have been able to rely on their savings to maintain their level of living. This is due in part to older generations having much higher household wealth than younger generations. In the United Kingdom, the average baby boomer has almost 5 times the wealth of millennials and more than 20 times the wealth of Generation Z. Family wealth, which includes net property wealth, private pension wealth, and net financial wealth, can assist families weather income shocks by acting as a cushion in difficult times. Yet, wealth levels follow a clear life course pattern, growing throughout working life and then declining in retirement. As a result, it is realistic to anticipate that older age groups will hold a higher percentage of the nation's wealth. From 2018 to 2020, wealth peaked among 65 to 74-year-olds, who had more than £500,000 on average, compared to just £24,000 for 20 to 29-year-olds. What is more important is the percentage change in wealth over time. The percentage of wealth owned by individuals 65 and older has increased from 42% in 2006 to 2008 to 51% in 2018 to 2020, owing mostly to changes in pension policy and asset price inflation. During the last few decades, household net worth has grown substantially faster than average salaries. As a result, the stock of net household wealth relative to GDP has increased from around 3.5 times to over 8 times since 1991. As a result, it is becoming increasingly difficult for families to become affluent merely via work. Instead, a family's capacity to generate wealth has become increasingly important in determining life outcomes, such as becoming a homeowner. Prior to the present cost of living crisis, young people were already suffering major housing cost issues, which had a negative impact on their living standards. young people had to pay a substantially bigger proportion of their net income on housing expenditures than earlier generations. Those born between 1981 and 1985, for example, had to devote 24% of their salary to housing expenditures by the age of 30, but those born between 1946 and 1950 had to devote just 11%. This has resulted in young people's salaries being squeezed even before the cost of living issue occurred. Due to rising housing costs, many young adults have moved back in their parents, either for financial reasons or a need for more room. Despite the fact that the pandemic led to an increase in the proportion of young people living at home, the trend has been increasing since 2008. In comparison, more than half of baby boomers bought their houses by the age of 30, and millennials owned less than a third by that age. Furthermore, millennials who purchased their first home in the previous 5 years may face far greater lifetime interest expenses than they anticipated. Increasing interest rates will disproportionately affect mortgage-holding households, with more than a third of 25 to 34-year-olds seeing an extra 8% of their income going towards mortgage payments by the end of 2026. Rising interest rates affect households in both good and bad ways. Borrowers will pay more interest on their debts, but savers will receive more on their savings. Nonetheless, because younger individuals are net borrowers, rising interest rates are often regarded as more damaging to them than to older age groups with larger amounts of savings. Notwithstanding these problems, it is critical to understand that each generation encounters its own set of challenges. For example, someone who had a mortgage in the early 1990s may have faced skyrocketing interest rates, despite lower house prices making loans more affordable. Similarly, while houses were inexpensive in the 1960s, individuals had to deal with leaded gasoline, shorter lifespans, and gender discrimination. While each generation had its own set of obstacles, some have fared better than others. Elderly people who have reached retirement age have typically profited the most. Someone born in 1956 will pay around £940,000 in taxes during their lifetime, but will get almost £1.2 million in state benefits, or £291,000 net. Someone born in 1996, on the other hand, will receive less than half of that amount, with a 27-year-old now earning little more than someone born in 1931, before the phrase welfare state was ever coined. Before I continue any further, allow me to introduce you all to economic news. Please like the video and subscribe with all notifications turned on by ringing the bell icon so that you can stay up to date with future uploads. Now, let us get back to the video. The COVID-19 pandemic has worsened generational disparities, with older individuals spending less during the pandemic and more thereafter. This might be because seniors saved money throughout the pandemic and are now spending it. Prior to the pandemic, the United Kingdom had had a decade of stagnation typified by poor development and high inequality, which had a detrimental influence on the living conditions of low to middle income Brits. The younger generation's reliance on intergenerational support, particularly from their parents, magnifies these economic issues. Younger employees are increasingly choosing jobs based on their proximity to their parents' houses and relying on financial help from parents to get on the housing ladder perpetuates existing inequities and limits social mobility for the next generation. The UK requires a new economic strategy to guide the economy through the current acute problems and to resume growth in generational living standards. This strategy should capitalize on the country's strengths, increase business investment, and address persistently high income and wealth inequality in order to ensure that future generations have access to secure and well-paying jobs, good quality affordable housing, and consistent incomes that can withstand future shocks. The government can assist improve the lives of all residents by putting light on the issues that the younger generation faces. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment down below, sharing your ideas on how the United Kingdom can fix their inequality issue within the different age groups of the population. Also, If you have time, do check out our other videos on the channel. Thank you and see you in the next video.